everyone, Pam Gregory, astrologer. I'd like to spend today's video really outlining some of the bigger picture, the big themes that we're going to be seeing in 2022, which is such a different year energetically to the last two. It is a year of extremes. It's a year potentially where we see a lot of chaos, turbulence. It's even tumultuous at times, a lot of breakdown of the old systems, but also a lot of joy, community, and dare I say, bliss. Depending on the frequency that you hold, depending on your level of consciousness, because it's a universal law that you will attract the reality to match your predominant frequency that you're broadcasting. And so this is incredibly important, probably more important than ever as we go through 2022, where we move from the kind of density and contraction of the last 2 years that was very much set up in January 2020 by the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. We're now moving beyond that with faster moving, more turbulent energies. And so really do stay in a place of center, a place of anchor, a place of peace as far as you are able, but also cultivate your own joy, cultivate living from the heart, whatever the outer circumstances are. And that is a way that you'll be greeted, if you like, to a matching reality, to those to the predominant frequency that you're broadcasting. And we so often think of our thoughts and our feelings just as invisible. They're just wafty. What tangible benefit could they produce? But there is just a ton of evidence now, and I've quoted so many of it in past videos, that we use our thoughts and our emotions to feed, to activate, and literally feed a future in every moment. And by feeding it, if we're in a coherent positive emotion, we create a coherent geometry in the plasma that has to produce a more coherent result than we would otherwise have. And that isn't to say that any of us are going to sail blissfully 100% through this year. I think that would be very difficult, but they're going to be, there's a scale. There's a scale here. And the bandwidth of frequencies, I so often say, has probably never been wider for humanity than it is at the moment. So, but we must be conscious of those choices to really optimize them. So let me just talk about some of the major aspects and the major themes. And as I said, this is very big picture because I'm going to be filling in the detail with my updates as time goes by. An aspect that we had all through 2021 is Saturn square Uranus. That will continue through 2022. Now, it won't come back exactly to the degree and minute, but it will come back exactly to the degree. And it's going to do that in October at 18 degrees of Aquarius for Saturn and Taurus for Uranus. Now, in 2021, I very much believe that Saturn had the upper hand. And let me just outline very simply the top line themes of those of that aspect, because Saturn represents the past, Uranus is the future. Saturn is about control, rules and regulations, very much top-down government for your safety. And Uranus says, no way. I want freedom. I want autonomy. I want to be an individual. I want to be a maverick. I want to do my own thing. So control and freedom are very, very big part. It's also the past, Saturn, and the future, Uranus. So ultimately, Uranus is always going to win this battle. And Uranus is becoming stronger this year for various reasons that I'll outline in this video. So that's one big dominant square through 2022. Another very important configuration all through 2022 is something we've actually had through 2020 and 2021, but the emphasis is shifting. This is a T-square between Pluto and Capricorn, control, power, top-down government, clashing in a square to Eris in Aries. This is the street fighter, the feisty one who won't tolerate social exclusion or inequality. She's the dwarf planet of awakening. She's warrior energy. She's the sister of Mars. She's about battling against injustice and inequality. And I think we've seen that so clearly, that square, in all the demonstrations and protests over 2021 particularly. But there's another part of this T-square, which is Haumea. She's at 29 of Libra, so she's opposing Eris and also squaring Pluto. And Haumea is one of the strongest symbols we have for New Earth because she's linked to the Hawaiian goddess of fertility. She's a very creative, regenerative principle, deeply connected to nature, shamanically connected, really. And she can produce food with her magic stick, the makalai. So she's a very precious symbol for New Earth. And what's important here is that the square between Pluto and Haumea is becoming tighter. So Haumea is becoming more prominent. So in all of this chaos and collapse of the old order, the birthing energy of Haumea, she could birth babies from all over her body, just not the regular places, incredible fertility. The regenerative and fertile potential of Haumea will become much more apparent. We will see more green shoots of New Earth, I want to say, in 2022 than we have in 2021. But the more you are on the frequency of creating New Earth, and that's where your focus is, to create the new rather than just watch the drama of the old, the more you are going to see those green shoots. We are going to be living in increasingly diverse realities through 2022. Just also to dwell, because Pluto will be strong this year for reasons, again, I'll come on to, but Pluto is very linked to the myth of Persephone. Now, many of you will be familiar with the myth of Persephone, which is very linked to the symbolism of Pluto, because she was a young maiden who was kidnapped and taken underground to Hades, to hell, some pretty hellish experiences. She had to cross the Styx, STYX, but then ultimately came up to the light, stronger, wiser being. And this is the process we go through. If you understand Pluto transits and you've ever experienced them, we have to often go through things alone. It feels very dark. It's usually connected to permanent endings in our lives. It's like a snake shedding a skin, that things are never quite the same again. But I think so it's very powerful in shifts, but I think it's very interesting here that if we think of that myth, it's very linked to something not only underground, but underhand. It's often linked to criminality, sexual, financial. I think we can probably see a lot of parallels and resonances with where we are today. Now, as I've spoken in several videos, it's also the US Pluto return. I'll put a link below for that video, so I won't repeat everything I said there. But essentially, we are entering a period of massive change, not only globally, but very specifically for the US. And I mention this because whatever happens in the US, particularly to do with power structures, is going to ripple and ricochet across the rest of the world too. So Pluto in the US chart is going to come back to its so-called natal 1776 place. That's exact on the 20th of February, 2022. Some interesting twos there with regard to numerology. It then repeats again in July. It repeats again in December. And it is also operational all through 2023. So this is going to cause some major, major changes in the economics, the politics, the constitutionality of the US, and even with its geographic makeup, I would say. Those issues of power and control are going to be very relevant to the rest of the world. In the US chart, it's also worth mentioning that they are going to be going through their Mars return this year. That becomes exact in October and November this year. And that happens every 2 years, but it becomes more powerful because it's the Pluto return at the same time, because it's around these issues of power and control. And Mars is linked to the god of war. It's assertion. It's us stepping into our own power as well. And Pluto as a principle, as I've spoken extensively, is really helping us to see that power is not or should not be external to us. Our power should be generated internally. We create from the inside out. Now, I think all of 22 is really about building to a crescendo in October, November, December this year. The energy is building and building and building. And if we look, for instance, to one of the very powerful total lunar eclipses we have this year, which I believe is on election day in the US midterms, I believe that's the 8th of November. Woof, what a powerful day that is. So we are going to go through the lead up to that crescendo, but we are going to have different episodes this year. That's why this year feels much more changeable, because Uranus is going to be stronger for reasons I'm about to describe. Mars is going to be very active too. They are both speedy planets. They do nothing slowly. And that is partly what is going to create this sense of change, turbulence, but also very different episodes as we move through this year. One of the big shifts is that the nodal axis, having spent 18 months in Gemini and Sagittarius, is now moving on the 18th of January into Taurus and Scorpio, where it will stay until July 2023. See where Taurus and Scorpio fall in your chart, which house areas, because wherever the nodal axis falls, north node, south node, whichever house area areas as a pairing they fall in your own chart, those houses will become very activated for you, because that's also where the eclipses are going to be falling. The eclipses have to happen close to the nodal axis. So these are, well, firstly, to say that the shift from North Node in Gemini, Gemini is ruled by Mercury, which is the mind, our thinking processes. The shift into Taurus is ruled by Venus. So Venus is the heart. So a big part of this shift in the nodal axis is we're moving from the mind to the heart, and that is a really big part of the shift to New Earth. The mind is so often our enemy, but we're moving to a much more heart-based consciousness. Fantastic. Taurus and Scorpio as signs, if you or you know anyone closely who are strong Taurus or Scorpio in their charts, these are strong people, often stubborn if it's Taurus, but they are both around strength and resilience. And that's what we're going to be asked to develop this year, our strength and our resilience. We're going to discover deeper parts of our strength and resilience than we've ever known or felt before. And that's also partly because of Jupiter's move into Eris, which I'll talk about in a moment. So let me just talk a little more about this nodal shift. Taurus is to do with our food distribution systems, land, agriculture. It's to do with currencies, banking, wealth, economics, all of those things. Taurus wants to take us back to the simple things. You know, plant seeds, stick your hands in the mud, go back to nature. It's slow rhythms. There's a yearning by many people, myself included, to get back to the simple, connect with the earth, connect to nature. And in doing that, you will find a lot of nurturing for yourself and stability. But it's a lot around economics, banking, as I say. I think we're going to see some really big changes in this in the next 18 months, some of them coming up very soon. Scorpio is similar around financial things. It's to do with investments. It's to do with debts, defaults, taxes. It's also to do with toxicity. If you think of the sting in the scorpion's tail, it's very toxic. So it's to do with toxicity and pollution. And we could see a lot coming to light around that. It's also a very sexual sign. We could again see secrets around sexual, particularly crimes, coming to light in a very significant way. There's also a feeling with the South Node in Scorpio around betrayal. Where have we been betrayed? Because this is the past, remember. So we may be discovering where we've been betrayed. But really, all through this this period of great turbulence on the 3D level, with old systems in front of our eyes, you know, leaders stepping down, governments collapsing, governments. I'm just hearing about Kazakhstan at the moment. You certainly won't hear on this on the mainstream news, and strongly suggest you stop watching that because you have to find different sources. But I'm hearing today that the government in Kazakhstan has collapsed, you know, very quickly. So I need more information on that, but that's the kind of thing we're going to be seeing. So how will the country be run by then? What will happen? You know, you can see the scenarios, you can see the setups. So that's why it's very important to be strong in ourselves, to be very resourceful in lots of ways, and to hold peace, hold the line and hold our peace. So with Uranus becoming stronger, and that's partly because Uranus is in Taurus until 2026, but the North Node has now moved into Taurus, which strengthens the presence of Uranus there. Uranus is also the planet of awakening. And so it's also the planet, by the way, of earthquakes, volcanoes, political earthquakes and volcanoes, financial ones. It's a very revolutionary and rebellious energy. It's very unstable. It never operates in a steady, slow, linear way. It goes in jumps, and therefore it's discontinuous. And I recently saw a forecast by a cosmologist about the increased level, which we've seen already in this year, 2021. We've had a lot more, we're very well aware, particularly if you track the Schumann resonance, that kind of thing, or watch spaceweather.com. We've had a lot more coronal mass ejections, solar flashes, M-class storms, etc. Now, this is because there's a drop in the magnetic shield, which is very significant, that's been buffering the Earth like a cotton wool buffer, if you like. A significant drop in that magnetic shield, which is leaving the Earth open to a lot more cosmic and galactic energy. And it is that, the photonic energy that's pouring in, that is helping to upgrade Gaia. We are so interlinked, we're not separate from Gaia. We are absolutely moving in parallel. And it is also upgrading, as we know, every cell in our body, which is why we're getting all these very odd physical symptoms, headaches, dizziness, insomnia, ringing in the ears, all that kind of thing. Because very rapidly, we as separate individuals are having to catch up to try and match that photonic energy and hold more light in our bodies. There is more light on the Earth right now than we have ever had before. Amazing, which is what is causing the destabilization. So if the geomagnetics of the Earth are unstable, many, many other things are going to be unstable. This is going to help to collapse the old social structures and political structures, because in that square between Saturn and Uranus, Saturn represents the old structures, and Uranus wants to break them down to get us to something way better. And that's always the process of Uranus. So as I say, it's the planet of awakening. It moves super quickly. For many people, their consciousness is going to be going in quantum leaps. They are barely going to be able to keep up with it. It's going to be going quantum jumps. And be aware of that and be prepared for that. And just ride the wave. Don't go under the wave. Try and ride that wave. Mars is also being very activated as well, and that's another speedy planet. Now, with this destabilization, politically, socially, financially, I believe, in many sectors of life, it would be very easy for that to lead to mental illness for many people. And Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury, ruling the mind. So that may well occur. And I've done a separate Jupiter-Neptune conjunction video. I won't repeat everything I said in there. I'll put the link for that video below. But as I mentioned there, with Jupiter coming together with Neptune, for some people that can increase the psychosis that some people are already experiencing. It can also, on the other hand, depending on which level you're living at, it can strip away all the illusion, because Jupiter represents truth. Same as Uranus, different expressions of it, but Jupiter is truth. And Neptune is deception. So for many, it's going to be stripping away those veils. There is going to be a lot going on. Now, other aspects of Uranus that we're already seeing happen, again, very fast. Uranus is lickety-split. We're going to see a lot more AI. We're going to see a lot more robotics. We're going to see a lot more of digital identities. How fast have they come down the track? And I did a whole video, as I say, on Uranus in Taurus. I did that in 2018 when it first moved in. I'll put the link for that below because I covered a lot of ground in that. But certainly digital identities, I mean, they're emerging in so many countries now. It's on the UK website. They are coming at speed. Don't sleepwalk into these. Think what that's really going to be about. Really think about it. And I'd strongly encourage you, there's several videos on YouTube you can easily access about the Chinese social credit system, because the Chinese are more advanced in this digital identity than any other country. I would strongly recommend that you watch one or two of those, because essentially in China, your life is controlled by your credit score on your mobile phone. Take a look, make a very conscious choice as to whether that's the future you want. Because it'd be very easy to just drift into that, because governments are doing that. Personally, I switch my mobile phone on maybe every 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks for a couple of minutes. I have no social media apps on that phone. I've turned off the location services. All of those things I have done very consciously and deliberately as a result of watching the videos on the Chinese social credit system. People who know me know I've got an old-fashioned corded phone, and they can phone me on that phone just as easily as they ever could, and it works perfectly well. But those were very conscious decisions. Other aspects of Uranus in Taurus are going to be how we use land, the way we produce food, and for many, as I say, they're going to be going back to the earth, farming organically, growing their own food, planting the seeds in the ground themselves, harvesting their own produce, which is going to be deeply satisfying in a way because we've never really done much of that before. Even growing microgreens on your windowsill, it's just so satisfying. It's like, when you're a kid growing cress on a damp piece of paper towel. But it's going to be deeply satisfying for us. The other expression of that is more engineered, more science-based food, such as lab-grown meat. That's becoming very prominent now. Ask yourself which way you want to go. Be really super conscious in your decisions as we are moving at ricocheting speed through 2022. Parts of 2022, particularly in the middle of the year, could be quite militaristic. They could be some kind of saber rattling. Again, just look at that and ask, with everything that happens this year, in every respect, question it and say, does that represent truth, or is that just another distraction along the way? Because you're going to be better able not only to increase your discernment, but also to stay in center. And be very judicious in what information you're taking in. With every piece of information, say to yourself, does this raise my frequency and help me to focus on new earth and a loving future, maybe in community, or does it reduce, does it decrease my frequency? And watch that. So this is all part of our mastery. Now, Jupiter in Pisces moving close to Neptune exactly in April. As I say, I talked about this is mutable water. So we could be having a lot of water issues, as I mentioned in that video, a lot around water, but a lot around, if you're on a higher timeline, unconditional love, healing, love. And remember, nobody puts you on any timeline. You, through your conscious choice, determine your timeline. It's absolutely down to us. So we must move, because the other thing Jupiter-Neptune conjunction can do is expand our sense of victimhood. And none of us need be in victimhood. We have got to discover our own sovereignty and autonomy in a bigger way than we've ever done it before. Big part of 2022. So I mentioned Mars is quite an activator this year. In March, it comes to square Uranus. That's a very eruptive, explosive aspect. So we might see a lot around that. In April, very interestingly, Mars comes to conjunct Saturn. Does that on the 5th of April, just a week before that, Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. Now, Mars came together with Saturn last in April 2020. I do mean April 2020. And this is very much around discipline, and this can be quite militaristic, actually, because it's a strong control. We were so many countries going into lockdown, March, April 2020. So what will this repeat be about? Will it be the same again? Greater attempts at lockdown, just like we had 2 years ago? Or will it be different this time, with all of this bubbling Uranus demanding more freedom, more human rights? Remember, Uranus is about freedom and human rights. Then on the 30th of April, we have a solar eclipse conjunct Uranus, highlighting Uranus. Interestingly, at the end of the year, on that, I believe, yes, it is, it's the 8th of November, we have a total lunar eclipse conjunct Uranus. Really strong aspects. Total lunar eclipses are quite difficult as well, highlighting Uranus. As we get into May, we have another total lunar eclipse, and this is at 25 degrees of Scorpio. Now, it's almost an echo, an opposite of the lunar eclipse we had in November 21, which was at 27 of Taurus, pretty much opposite this one that's coming up, 25 of Scorpio. These are both very tightly on the Sun, S-U-N, of President Biden. Son of President Biden. So there could be issues around his vitality. At the November lunar eclipse, that was the actual day he had a general anesthetic and a colonoscopy. Interesting, it hit that day. So just observe, but May is going to be a very big shift of energy. We've got this total lunar eclipse happening on the 11th of May. Jupiter moves from Pisces to Eris. This is a big shift, big change in energy, because when it was in Pisces, particularly close to Neptune, this is just a beautiful, unconditional love, healing, shifting consciousness, mutable water, no boundaries for the water. Could be big issues around water, admittedly. And then it moves into primal fire, cardinal fire. And this is very different. This is about, again, finding our strength. It's a very assertive energy. Eris is the first sign in the zodiac. So this is like new beginnings, new episodes. Be a pioneer, be an entrepreneur, strong life force. Find the physical strength inside yourself. So what new project? See where Eris as a sign falls in your chart. Which house area is that? Where are you going to initiate? Where are you going to start something new that could be powerfully productive for you? This only happens once every 12 years. So it's really super to optimize this. 25th of May, Mars moves into Eris too. It's natural sign of rulership. And Mars and Jupiter come together at the end of May, early June. This is fantastic for getting things done. It's driving energy and focus. Wonderful for getting things done. Goal setting, finding the most direct route to get to it. It is also stirring up some very strong assertive energy in the world, so be aware of that. As we get into late July, we have an incredibly strong aspect where we have the conjunction of Mars, Uranus, and the North Node all together. Last week of July, first week of August. Boom. Powerful, sudden, eruptive energy, shocking energy, earthquake type energy. This could be cyber attacks. Be a lot, a lot of different expressions, but just be aware that is an incredibly powerful time for energy. And also in August, Mars moves stationary retrograde. So again, it's whenever a planet changes direction, its symbolism is highlighted. Another theme is, as we move into August, is Mars moving into Gemini. By the way, I want to say with the Saturn-Uranus square that I talked about at the beginning of this video, it starts to come closer again. It's operational all year, but it's starting to come much closer together from August onwards. And then it becomes exact to degree in October. So Mars enters the sign of Gemini in August, and it stays there for 7 months. Unusual for Mars to stay in any sign for that long. It's usually 6 to 8 weeks, but it's because of its retrograde motion. So this again brings in a different quality. This could be angry words, very assertive words being spoken. It can suggest some cyber attacks as well. In fact, we could have those really at any point through this year, but it's particularly strong from August onwards. And sometimes it can bring in new social media platforms that can be very positive. I think it will very much channel the mainstream media. With Gemini, which is mutable air, there can often be a kind of scattered energy and easily distracted, because it's like almost shining light through a prism, and the light becomes split. It's divergent energy. But if you can master your thinking, this is fantastic for writing, for a writing project, because it energizes the mind to write. Gemini is very much about writing, so we can use it very productively in that way too. So all of these solstices and equinoxes also this year are very potent and actually very, very positive. And through 2022, there isn't enough time in this video, it's been long enough, but I want to focus more on the dwarf planets, the Kuiper belt objects, because they play a very prominent part in the solstices and equinoxes that are going to, again, surge our energy forwards, because these Kuiper belt objects are the next jump in consciousness for us. They operate on a quantum principle, and they are really taking us to a finer energy. We're moving beyond the 3D tough stuff on the ground. If we can keep our focus higher, boy, can that take us into some very different realms of being, and that's super exciting. Remember, we're coming to a crescendo, I believe, in the last 3 months of the year, which may mean that as we get into 2023, that has a very different feeling. We may be standing right at the end of 2022, dusty, battered, but my goodness, proud, standing in our sovereignty, standing in our autonomy, and shining our light in the world. So really focus on that being your vision as to where you're headed, if that's the trajectory you're on for 2022. And I think all of us in these very turbulent times, because we're human, so often we say, well, when is this going to be over? It's awful. I mean, day-to-day life, I've lost my job, I've lost my home, I've lost my relationship. It's awful. And I know it is utterly hideous for many people at that bread and butter day-to-day level. I'm totally well aware of that. But if we can, because whenever we say, when will this be over, it also suggests in our energy field a kind of lack and not there yet. So if we can kind of shift that to say, how can I optimize the energy for the moment? How can I make the best of what's available to me energetically? And therefore we start to use the astrology strategically rather than falling into victim mode. Because I think whenever we say, when is it going to be over, we step into a bit of victim. And actually the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction can also expand the victim, because Neptune's about victimhood, so is Pisces. So not to fall into that, I'm a victim and when will this be over, but step into, I'm a co-creator. How can I use the prevailing energies to maximize my creations to help everybody step towards that better world? Every single one of us, because believe me, an alternative society is being built right now, not just down the road, right now. A new alternative society, they're just going to bring about a new health system, a new financial system, a new educational system, a new legal system, a new political system for sure, which is going to be more grassroots up, people's councils, people's assemblies, hubs of people coming together in sharing and sharing their knowledge, sharing their understanding, sharing their love. And that's going to start to create a totally, utterly different society. And yeah, it's embryonic right now. No doubt it's embryonic. But believe me, it is happening every single day. That is happening. So as the old collapses, I said we're going over the tipping point as we get into 2022. And we are. You're going to see more of the old collapse. You're going to see more leaders stepping down, more governments collapsing, more people you thought were heroes becoming less than heroes, as we see more and more signs of green shoots and new earth. It's going to be very eventful. It's going to be very dramatic. It's going to be very eventful and wild at times. So make your decisions super conscious. Stay on your eagle's perch, step back, be the observer and think, what do I want to create in my world that will not only benefit me, but benefit many others around me? Remember how much light is on this planet right now. Incredible opportunity for the evolution of humanity. So I'm sorry this has been so long, a bit of a rant. I hope it's been helpful for you, and really stand strong in 2022, because if more of us stand strong, it will be easier and easier to stand strong. I think that's really important. God bless. Bye for now. I'll be updating you regularly through the year.